Welcome to day 2 of me pulling back the curtain on the behind the scenes of how I built my multi-six-figure business, and an opportunity for us to have conversations online here on Instagram that I find often aren't spoken about. I feel like it's so important to have these conversations, especially when we're talking in the realms of feminine energetics, wealth, building our businesses, bringing our vision to life, that you really get all sides of the perspective. And because as much as I can come on and talk about feminine magnetism and radiance, which I do and will continue to, and you'll see that loop back again, it's a core part of everything that I share. There's also this other side of structure, of stability, of bringing this strategy into the soul to be able to create something that is powerfully magnetic and also financially sustainable and even abundant and regenerative. I think often in these conversations, it's much more of a sexy sell to be able to say, okay, all you have to do is be magnetic and radiant and joyful and self-pleasure and take bubble baths and everything will come, than it is to actually talk about the hard work and the dedication, the boundaries, the clarity, the tough conversations, the big risks that are involved, the shadow work of looking at our own selves, our own worthiness, not enoughness, our sense of value, all of these things that actually also come along for the ride if you are somebody who has a big vision and you want to really anchor it into this world and grow it in a way that feels really super aligned. So this is day 2 of 3, where I'm coming on to share with you some of the greatest challenges that I've had in my 15 years of entrepreneurship, how I overcame them, and hopefully give you some gems to be able to take into your own life. And it's conversations like this that I'll also be having more and more behind the scenes inside my program called Feminine Leadership Mastery, which is a 12-week online group coaching program with myself and my dear friend and team member. She's a core part of my own team, Robin Savage, who is the founder of the brand Is You Co. And together we bring over 25 years of entrepreneurship and feminine leadership in really real, raw ways to be able to really marry and alchemize the power of the feminine, also combined with the structure and the strategy of masculine, so that you've really got your own like inner power couple, working together to grow the things that you love. So I'm going to jump in today because this is a conversation that I often get from people who are in roles like teachers, coaches, facilitators, people who are leading teams, meetings, etc., that are struggling with understanding, how do I really bring the fullness of who I am, including my emotions? What happens if I am having a hard time at home? I feel like I have to cut myself off in order to show up, or I'm crumbling inside, but how can I really show up as a leader in the field? How to not leak the energy from your own personal life into your professional life, and at the same time not cut yourself off. So, and how to create systems in place so that when you have life that happens, which of course it will, divorces, deaths, like big things, accidents, health crises, etc., especially if you're growing something long term like I have, you're inevitably going to have these in your life. So how do you also set your business up in a way that you can have life happen and at the same time not have your business succumb to the waves of your emotional well-being as well? So that's what I'm going to talk about today. Now, if we're new to each other, also just wanting to share that I've been in this field, an entrepreneur for 15 years, really just owned it, that I did this maybe 5 years ago. I've been running my own business for a long time, but I had to work through a lot of my own money stories and healer stories and all of that to get to the point where I'm running now a multi-six-figure business with the most amount of ease, joy, and pleasure than I ever have. And it's really a joy to support other women to be able to step into your power, to create a wealthy life that is rooted in pleasure, that really feels abundant in all ways, not only financially abundant, we'll talk about that too, but also abundant in the way that you can prioritize your relationships and the things that really matter most to you. So here we go. So a little personal background. I have been leading groups for a very, very long time. And since 2009, I was leading yoga classes. And then I ended up having a yoga school as well, where I was training a lot of facilitators. So one of the things that really happened for me during this time is I learned how to make space for all of my feelings and emotions that were coming up, and at the same time be able to be fully present without cutting myself off. And during this time of the yoga teacher days, the women's circle days, which I still do, leading international retreats around the world, showing up for private clients, like all of this I've done through my own divorce that happened, about 10 years ago. That was a big moment, to be going through all of those phases pre-divorce and have to show up right after I'm literally crying in the office of the yoga studio, and then in a moment having to switch and be super present for 40 people in a room who showed up to have a great experience and take care of themselves. I really learned how to bring and distill the essence of what wants to be shared without making it all about me, but actually having it be relevant for other people. So that's super important. I'm going to share more about that. The other experience that I'll share from is that 5 years ago, I lost my grandmother. She passed away from cancer, and she was really my person. She was really the deepest love relationship I've ever known. And in the months before she passed, I literally sat next to her, in not just next to her hospice bed, but inside her bed with her, cuddling together, spending as much time as I could, grieving the loss of this person that I loved. And then when she passed away, it was literally the darkest time of my life. I didn't want to be here anymore for some time, literally, I just didn't want to do life anymore. Went through a deep, deep layer of grief, of depression, of feeling, just not wanting to keep on going anymore. So my business has survived that. And all of this to say that part of what has been really helpful is learning to bring all of me to the present moment, not cutting off parts of me, and at the same time not being kind of overhit or overrun by the emotional waves that can sometimes come. And why I want to share this with you is something that's really important, is because as we're growing a business, I feel in order to create and generate wealth and stability to continue showing up, even when there's parts of you that doesn't want to show up, that is what's going to keep the heartbeat of your life and of your business, of your livelihood going, so that the part of you who needs to tend to your emotional body can actually have the space to do that. And the last thing I'm going to talk about today is also imposter syndrome. A lot of women that I work with come in with imposter syndrome, feeling like, oh, but I haven't even figured this out in my own life, so how can I possibly show up for other people? Or I feel like a fraud. Here I am talking about intimate relationships, but my relationship at home is falling apart, and feeling this imposter syndrome of being different online than you are behind the scenes. And I'll share more about that and how to really make sure that you are showing up fully aligned as who you are. For me, that's the only way to do it, to not be pretending, so that the only time I think we feel like an imposter is if we are trying to be something that we're not, and we're trying to put on a facade that we're something that we're not. And it's the inner alignment with the outer alignment. When that doesn't match, that's when we feel like an imposter. And then that's when the self-doubt, the lack of confidence, the who am I to, all of that starts to show up, and it leaks into your field, and then your clients feel it. And then there's a lack of trust, right? Because there's something that you're like, wait a minute, this doesn't feel right. So that's a lot to cover, but I'm going to do my best in 20 minutes or so to talk through all of these with you. As you are listening, please also comment, heart, I love to have some feedback. So if something I'm sharing really resonates for you, make a comment or make some hearts, let me know. If you have any questions along the way, I will also stay on for about 5 minutes afterwards to answer any questions. And then I'll also talk a little bit more about Feminine Leadership Mastery, my program, which is coming up. So you can always DM me FLM in the comments and I'll send you the link for more info afterwards. But these are the kinds of conversations that we're going to be having more of inside FLM, real deal conversations. You'll figure out pretty soon, if you haven't already worked with me, that I'm a pretty open book. I feel like this is how I can best serve and teach, is not by just showing you the shiny things, but showing you the challenging things as well. All right, so how I built my multi-six-figure business while still having room for all of my emotional waves. Where to begin? So much to say. Let's talk about the imposter syndrome first. Imposter syndrome happens when we are trying to be something that we're not. When we feel this pressure, usually an inner pressure, of feeling like we should be somewhere different than we are. Imposter syndrome, or a misalignment of yourself, happens when you only put one aspect of who you are, the part of you that maybe you want other people to see you as, or perceive you to be online or in front of your clients, but you are spending a lot of energy inside trying to hide the other parts of you. That's when imposter syndrome happens. In order to not feel the imposter syndrome, which often keeps people, maybe you feel this way as well, from actually taking action, right? What keeps us from taking action is this feeling like I should know more, or I should be somewhere different than I am on my path, or I should get that other certification, or I can't really share my gifts until somebody else outside of me essentially approves or gives me permission or tells me that I'm good enough to be able to step out into the world with my gifts. And what I'm here to share with you is that how to essentially work with this feeling of, who am I to step out into the world? Who am I to offer my gifts? Who am I to charge what I want to charge? We're going to talk a lot more about that tomorrow as well. Charging, sales, is that you have to make sure that who you are inside and who you are showing on the outside aligns. It's really that simple. Most of us can get really wrapped up in this feeling like, yeah, but what if somebody is going to judge me for that? Well, how I believe feminine leadership is embodied is that we really come with the fullness of who we are, with the vulnerability of who we are, not for the sake of being vulnerable, right? Just to get something else again, right? But really the truth of who we are. And anytime that we sit in the truth of our being and allow ourselves to be revealed in that, without pushing or without retracting, but being able to stand in the presence of who you really are, then the imposter syndrome starts to dissolve. So I'll give you real life example of this. When I was teaching yoga, I had the great blessing of having an incredible opportunity when I first started teaching yoga. This was back in 2009. I had literally just finished my first yoga teacher training ever. I was in Thailand and I was super ecstatic, and I didn't know that I ever wanted to be a teacher, but I did this training. I thought it was great. I loved it. And I was like, wow, I can do this. I can teach people to breathe and be in their bodies. And this could be something that I could do as my career. Great, sign me up. So right after my training, I also attended my first women's circle. And this was a beautiful women's circle with a woman named Monica, who I've just grown to love. And it was in this little hut in Thailand. There was only 4 of us. And I really got along with the women who were there. So after the circle, we were all like so touched and so moved. It was beautiful. And one of the women invited me to have lunch with her and her husband. Well, turns out that her husband they both were working at the Omega Institute in New York State. And I don't know if you've heard about it before, but it is a world-renowned holistic study center. Like the best of the best teachers go there. Like names that you probably might even recognize, right? Just the best of somatic work, dance, movement, meditation, tantra, shamanic lineages, interpersonal relating, breath work, like you name it. Like all the masters are there. So I get invited as a brand new teacher to go and hang out and be part of their staff at the Omega Institute. And I was like, gosh, I didn't even really know what it was. I kind of jump in with my full feet. That's kind of how I do life. When I feel this like feeling inside just says like, okay, I'm excited. I don't know why, but let me just move into doing this. So I said yes. I went back home to Calgary, saved a bunch of money, enough to buy my flight, went to Omega. And there I offered my first yoga classes. Now, this is a very, very loving community and very discerning community because they have the best of the best teachers surrounding them all the time. So boy, did I feel like an imposter going in there. Like brand new teacher amongst all of these experts, feeling like, what do I have to share? Who am I to do anything? Like, who am I to even stand in front of this room? So what I did was, instead of standing up and pretending to be that I was some great yogi master or something, because I wasn't, rather than trying to act confident because I was scared shitless, but I wanted to give my best, rather than trying to hide all that and pretend that I was something I wasn't, I really just came from my full heart and said, wow, I'm so grateful to be here. I'm really nervous. This is my first yoga class and I feel so blessed to even be here. Thank you for being here. I want you to know that I'm going to do my best and I'm learning. And I hope that I can support you to breathe better, to be in your bodies, and to have a really great class. And afterwards, I would love any feedback that you have so that I can continue to grow. And guess what? That class, probably not going to think that I'm going to say this, but I'm going to say it, sucked. Big time. And I'm not just saying this to like be humble. It really, really sucked. It was so bad. I actually had people not come back to my classes for years after that. Luckily, I taught there for 7 years. I did get better. I'm a quick learner. But literally did not come back for 7 years because it was such a bad class. But one thing that I continued to do was always be honest with where I'm at. I'm learning. Can you give me feedback? I love this. I'm super passionate. I want to be able to support. Did this help? Did it not? And because I showed up as who I am rather than pretending to be someone I'm not, because I continually asked for feedback in order to refine my craft, to be able to get better, and therefore get better quite quickly, because even though it can be very vulnerable to ask for feedback, I did, because it would only make me a better teacher. So that's one way. So in terms of how to apply this for you in your life, if you feel like you need to have another certification before you start doing the thing that you love, if you're feeling like, yeah, but I should be 10 years ahead, or if you're watching this live or you're following another person or whatever, and you're saying, well, wait a minute, like I haven't built a multi-six-figure business yet, so who am I to, fill in the blank? What I would invite you to do is, instead of always waiting, if that's your pattern, for someone else's external approval for you to get started, be self-led. Right? And really source yourself from that place of like, this is my joy, this is my passion, I'm going to step in, but I'm not going to pretend that I'm something or someone that I'm not. Be honest with where you're at, and your clients, your audience will appreciate you for that. All right, so that's one thing. The second thing I want to talk about is the grief of my grandmother. So I was in the middle of leading Untamed, which is one of my signature programs for women. It's a powerful journey of reclamation. And I was in Calgary, and my beloved grandmother had passed away at 10 a.m. 10 a.m. on a Wednesday morning. I was at the hospice, grieving with my family, quite in shock, and I can still feel it still here, that I didn't make it to her bedside right before she passed. It was the one, these classic examples of, it was the one time that I didn't stay over at night because the hospice nurse had said, hey, I think she's going to stick around tonight. Like, maybe you guys just get a good rest at home. It was the one day I didn't set an alarm where I missed my mother's call to say, hey, grandma's on her way out. Like, I think you should come. It was the one morning. So, of course, I trust in divine timing, and maybe that's how she needed to go, but it was really like heart-wrenching, for me. And that night at 6 p.m., I had the second session of Untamed, and it was all about pleasure. So what a paradox in so many ways to have just sat, like literally sitting beside my grandmother who had just passed, and then going in to teach a session about pleasure with women. Now, I knew, of course, the sisters would understand if I didn't come. I had a wonderful other sister step in to be able to teach that session who knew it, so it could have been fine. I could have not been there. But when I really, really got present with myself and felt, okay, I know that I could give myself permission to grieve and to have those waves of tears, and those came for sure. And yet, when I got really present, I was like, no, I actually want to be at this session with the Untamed Sisters. But I wanted to be there with the fullness of who I was. And that means that there is the part of Alice who is deeply in grief as much as there is the part of Alice who is deeply in pleasure and in joy and in sisterhood. What I learned about facilitating is how to be really fully present. Not so that you brush your emotions away, right? Or like I spent years trying to meditate my emotions away when I was a spiritual person, right? So it's not to suppress any emotions, certainly not. But it's also this quality of presence where we don't allow our emotions to completely crash over us and sweep us away. That keeps us from our ability to be really present with what is here now. So when I showed up at the session, of course, I wasn't going to pretend that I wasn't grieving. I was in grief. And to be able to create the space as a facilitator, as a female leader, to be able to sit in front of a room of women, know that I'm here in service of, their growth, and at the same time, like how to lead, like really the feminine way, is to really share deeply what's happening without it taking over the space and everybody else's experience. I have my support systems for that as well. So I share this with you because there's been these moments of deep grief. I've gone through divorce. I've had moments really where I was like, how the fuck am I going to show up in front of this room of sometimes 250 people when inside I feel like I'm absolutely crashing? And in order to create a sustainable business, I feel you have to also have this quality that brings you to presence, right? To not say that part of me doesn't matter, but to actually welcome it in the space. This is, again, that part of not being an imposter, right? So when I'm pretending that something isn't happening in my life, or that part of me doesn't exist, I'm trying to override it, hide it. That is what takes up a lot of energy. What frees up energy in your leadership is when you allow all parts of you to be here, be present, but to also not let things override and take over the space. So that is an example of how I've really worked with it. And then the next thing I'm going to talk about is systems. Yeah. But before I do that, if you're hopping in right now, I just want to share and just like peeling back the curtains on what really happens behind my multi-six-figure business, how I've built it, and hopefully glean some of this wisdom onto you. And if these conversations you're loving, this is what happens inside Feminine Leadership Mastery, which is my group coaching program. Starts Tuesday. I'll share more about that, or DM, comment, FLM, and I'll send you all the details. Okay, last piece for today. I just lost my thought. See, a moment of just like, okay, get present. Structure. So I am a big fan of working with feminine flow. We have cycles naturally, right? We have our bleeding cycle. We are deeply impacted by the moon cycle, most of us. And I love to make space in my life to be able to really let myself rest when I'm bleeding. I also have cycles of seasons. Some seasons I'm super grounded and activated, like fall, for example. Spring, I'm like really activated. My energy's online. And other times, like in the summer, I want to be dancing barefoot at festivals. I want to go to Burning Man. I want to turn off my phone for weeks at a time. But I do want to be able to build structure in a way into my business so that I can flow. If you are in a place where your business stops when your emotional waves or your cycles are here, what's going to be really supportive for you, I believe, in order to have more space for your flow is actually to have times of structure. Now, I was like really anti-structure for a while, just FYI. I was like, especially when I discovered my feminine, I was like, I want to be in my feminine flow. I want to be able to do what I want. I want to sleep in without an alarm, which I still do, by the way. And like, I don't want to have structure. I was like, had been so rigid in my masculine that when I swung over to my feminine, she was like, I just want to flow all the time. And that's a great place to be. Highly recommend that you have that time in your life if you haven't. And if you want to create something sustainable that builds, then you really got to learn to have kind of this masculine structure that is here to create the container and the support so that your feminine can flow. Now, an example of this is what, again, we're going to dive in more of inside FLM, is how to work with your cycle so that when you are in activation and creation mode, you really ride that wave. So that when you are in resting, like brain is not working, everything is melting, all the energy is going down to my womb, you can take that time off without A, feeling guilty, and B, feeling like you're going to be so behind and that you can't afford to take that time off. Now, one of the things that I do is I batch content, not all the time, but enough that I've got solid, creative, powerful posts, for example, online and Instagram, or emails that are already set up so that in these times where life needs me in a different energetic place, that I already have these ready to go. During my cycle, I have a few days where I'm really activated. Like I'm literally like gladly up until 2, sometimes 3 a.m. Not because I feel like I need to force myself up to be at that time, but because my natural rhythm is like, whoa, I'm activated. I'm turned on. I've got so much creativity. And instead of putting this boundary around it, like, oh, but you know, feminine embodied leaderships, people should not, should have more boundaries around our time, and we shouldn't be working that much. I mean, yes, and I'm going to go with my energy when it's there, right? So those are the times that I write and I create. So that in the times that I want off, those are again ready to go. I also have systems in place. So for example, I automate a lot of my work. Untamed, for example, I've run this like super powerful program over 20 times now, which means that I have systems built in place to be able to keep on allowing this program to flourish, to flow, to get better every time I run it because the systems are there. Without those systems, I would be like recreating something all the time. And that takes a lot of energy. It's not to say that Untamed is not fresh. Like I don't have a script for Untamed. I have a general flow. We have topics that we cover. It's clear. There's a curriculum. And at the same time, like I don't read from a script, right? So it's not like structured stale. It's structured enough that there are some things that me and my team, we just don't even have to think about anymore because we've done it. The systems are in place. Those like prep emails are up, the registration is flowing, the Telegram group prompts are set up, like all of that is there so that I can really be fully present in person for the work and be able to actually have more freedom to be more creative and more present. So those are some things that are really, really have really helped for me. Just one or two more examples, and then I'm going to open it up for questions. So if you got any questions, pop them in the comments. I'm happy to answer them. Sometimes people look at me and they say, like, how do you do it all? You know, like, you're everywhere, you're doing everything. Like, how do you keep up with yourself? So yeah, again, honest truth, sometimes I don't know. Sometimes I'm like, whoa, where am I? What country am I in? Have I landed? So there are definitely many moments of that, including this one. I was just in Mexico. I was just in Canada. Now I'm in a youth hostel in Zurich teaching at a Tantra festival. So there's definitely moments, you know, where it's like, well, okay, there's a lot going on. And in another way, I've really set up my business and learned to call in support from team, from assistants, from like in-person assistants, virtual assistants, volunteer teams, tech team, like all of this was something that I built and grew over time. So being able to have these systems in place also allows you to potentially, if you're at this place in your business, bring somebody else in to be able to help you. If you don't have systems in place, it's really hard for somebody else to help you. So yes, this is something that I would highly also recommend. If you have any resistance to it, I invite you to just sit for a little moment and ask yourself, what is it that you truly desire out of creating a thriving business? What are you really wanting to create in life? For me, time freedom is everything. Like, it's massive. So time and location freedom. So in order to be able to do that, I need to have really clear systems in place so that my feminine can really show up and feel cared for and not neglected. Like her man, you know, my man has got my back because he's got the structure and the container. All right, so those are my my juicy behind the scenes curtain reveal for today. I see your comments, so I'm going to get to those in just a moment. But I wanted to share that this is day 2 out of day 3. So again, if you're loving these conversations, join me for tomorrow, where I'm going to talk about sacred sales. This was game changer for me in my business. Huge. When I finally embraced that I have something really of value, of deep service to offer you and to the world, and to really step into my own power of knowing that, claiming that, and then sharing it from a place of deep alignment where sales doesn't feel icky at all anymore. It did, and it doesn't anymore, because it's really this place of full alignment inside, you know, doing all of the shadow work, imposter syndrome, money, worth, like all of that, to be able to show up fully for you, for the community, and make really offer and invitations in a way that is amazing. And this took me from being like just under a 6-figure business to multi-6 figures in a very short amount of time. So this is something that I would also really love to share, and I'm going to share some snippets of that with you tomorrow. For those of you who are curious about Feminine Leadership Mastery, would love to share this, and then again I'll get to the comments in a moment, is Feminine Leadership Mastery FLM. It starts this Tuesday. We have a few spots left. It's a 12-week online group coaching container with myself and a core part of my team, Robin Savage, who is the founder of the brand Is You Co. She is amazing. Together, we have over 25 years of entrepreneurship experience in female leadership. We've both grown multi-6-figure, and she's grown a 7-figure business. So you get both of us in a very small group container who have our eyes on you, and we're going to talk about some of these conversations that we're having now. For example, feminine magnetism, and really allowing pleasure to lead in your business. We're going to talk about emotional mastery, boundaries, communication, time management. We're going to look at your bold visibility and how you show up in the world, and then how to call in really soul-aligned clients, as well as have the skill sets like powerful selling, powerful messaging, to be able to really magnetize the people that you most want to work with and who are excited to also hand their money over and get your support. So these are the things that we're going to be looking at. Just comment FLM if you want me to DM you more info. We had a little bit of a glitch yesterday with the DMs. So if you messaged me FLM yesterday, unfortunately I didn't get it. So please just send me a personal DM comment here. I'll make sure I catch it today and send it over to you. But again, 12 weeks, we do live calls every week. They are recorded, of course. There is also a few recorded modules for FLM only. They're not published anywhere else. And then the real gold mine, I feel, is in addition to the live calls, is and the embodiment practices and all of that you'll get, is you get our in-between call support. So literally like two of us as your mentors, eyes on you, your business, your growth, your wealth, your influence, and being able to support you during this container to be able to create a outstanding, wealthy life that's rooted in pleasure. So that's FLM. All right, so questions here. Okay, Larissa, how should a woman start to work on her women's energy? Can I recommend some good practices? Yes, absolutely. So, I mean, there's so much I can share on this. This is a whole full topic. But one of the things that I would say in this moment, and you can also hop onto my website, alicehong.com, and then look under free gifts. And under there, you'll find a practice called How to Connect with Your Feminine Energy. It's a very, very simple but powerful practice. It's the practice that I use every single morning that connects me with my heart, with my vulva. So it's literally one hand to heart, one hand over top of your vulva, to take some deep breaths and to start to really connect these two areas of your body and deeply listen. I share much more about it in that free gift. So Larissa, I would suggest hopping onto there and downloading that, and that would be a really great starting point. Also, I find that for women's energy, learning how to receive is really, really huge. We've been often conditioned to give and give and give, which empties our cup, but the feminine being, our feminine body, is actually designed, even through our body, as a vessel of receiving. So if you do practices of really receiving in your life, receiving pleasure is another one. Pleasure practices are huge. Pleasure, I believe, are portals into presence. For us, pleasure is what nourishes us. It's what creates radiance in the body, which creates magnetism. We also talk about this more inside FLM. So these would be some small nuggets, Larissa, to get started. So go ahead and download that from my website. Also, if you really want to dive more into feminine practices, we're going to do this inside FLM as well. And you can also check out Nectar. Nectar is my online course, which is all about female pleasure. And that is an incredible course, like super beautifully professionally filmed. It's awesome. And there are lots of practices in there to start to cultivate your women's energy. So I hope that gives you some starting points. So go check them out, and then we'll go from there, okay? All right, next question. Sarah, when you start a small side business, it feels like you are doing all at once. Is there one area where you would say one could already start to automate? Or in general, where would you focus on? Yeah, good question. So I'm thinking, because there's a lot of different ways I could take this, and then Sarah, I would want to know more about you and your business, and also where are you spending most of your time that is leaking energy, that is not in your zone of genius, and that feels cumbersome. So that's often the place where I first start with small business owners, is really to take stock of what do you love to do that you feel energized from, and what costs you energy to be doing. And for some people that might be like writing emails or creating Instagram posts or answering to people's messages, or creating Canva graphics. So, and just to let you know, I really get what it's like to be doing everything all on your own. Yeah. So I'm here where I am now, but like I have been for a decade, probably, well, maybe not a decade, but a long time, 8 years, doing everything by myself. So I'm very grateful actually that I know how to do almost everything in my business, from these like tedious little things to the big ideation, because it's given me the understanding of what it takes. So I totally get where you are. And then also when you make your first hire, or when you choose to automate something, you've got enough of your own inner knowledge to be able to make a great hire, know what's needed. And even if you're working with AI, for example, that's again a whole other topic, but you need to have enough skill to even know like what you want to give it as input and whether the output is good, right? So that's just something to talk about. I would say that, Sarah, one of the things that I did was really automate my emails. So what I'm talking about is like when somebody registers for a course, right? They usually get a welcome email or a follow-up email. So those I started to automate pretty quickly. I also started to batch content. I also post spontaneously as well because I love aliveness, but also to automate some things that I just knew that there was a rhythm of things going out. So I started to batch content much more, work with my creative flow like I talked about earlier, and then pre-schedule things. So those are a few big things. And then also, a lot of the admin stuff I feel can probably be automated to be able to create structure. Email sequences as well, like if somebody signs up for like an email freebie for you, the emails that come after that, those can easily be automated. So Sarah, let me know if that's helpful. If you have any follow-up questions, just pop it on the comments, okay? All right, let me just see if there's anything else. Larissa, very interesting. Thank you very much. Yeah, my pleasure. Okay, great. So I'm going to stay on for a few more moments in case anybody has any questions about feminine leadership, about running your own business, about how you can grow in your wealth. That's rooted in pleasure. Happy to stay on for a few more moments. And again, if you're curious about FLM, just message FLM in the comments or send me a DM, and happy to chat more also to see if it's a great fit for you. We start on Tuesday, 12 weeks, gonna be the bomb. It's gonna be so good. Hey, Janet. Yeah, always good to see you on here. You're so welcome, love. And then tomorrow, again, same place, same time here on Insta, we are gonna talk about the art of selling and how to do this in a super aligned way. This is a skill that I have supported my private clients work with especially, and I just have to say, like, their results have been really, really amazing. One woman that I worked with, Sabina, who's given me permission to share about her story, and it's going to go, we're going to do a spotlight on her because she's been amazing, but literally said to me the other day in her testimonial, I went from feeling like a beggar on the streets to a queen sitting in my throne. Never ever has seen this much money in her bank account before. She's been doing this for 40 years. She is a powerful, powerful voice coach, amazing. And there was no doubt that what she does in the world is incredible. But what hadn't been unlocked is the art of selling in a way that feels really aligned, selling as service rather than selling in a way that feels super icky. So I'm going to share a little bit behind the scenes about that tomorrow. All right, Ella. So if I'm really just want to start with my business, does it make sense to join my course? Yeah, great question. So I would actually suggest that Ella, we can hop on a quick call and chat about it and let me learn more about you and your business, and then I'll be able to direct you better. But if you are just starting out your business, I actually recommend that you start with Alchemy. So Alchemy is my 10-week course, which is all about the bones of starting your business. From, like, some people come in and they really are just starting from scratch. Other women have been doing it for a little while, but kind of missing the basic foundations of how do you get clear in your vision? What is your, we call it your positioning statement. Like, what do you want to be known for? What is your offer? What makes it irresistible? How do you create an email lead magnet to be able to get people's emails? What do you even write in your email list? What do you post on Instagram? How do you price your offerings? How do you create your offerings? How do you do a launch? Like, all of this is actually part of the Alchemy of Business program. And that is going to start in mid or late April. It's also a small group coaching program. It's also really amazing. You get like the best of my hands-on support, as well as like unlimited feedback rounds. It's like the course that I wish that I had when I was starting my business. It really blends the best of online group coaching with like high-level one-on-one coaching, and I kind of merged it together to make it more accessible for those of you who are starting to be able to really have that strong, solid foundation of here are the steps of building your business. So Ella, I would really recommend like shoot me a DM if you want, or I can message you afterwards and let's have a chat. But for those of you who are really like kind of at the start of your business, or were missing, or maybe you aren't at the start of your business but you never really had proper business training, Alchemy is the course for you. And it's also super incredible. FLM, Feminine Leadership Mastery, is more for people who either have an existing business and now just looking to really like amplify their reach, to become more magnetic, to elevate their wealth, and to really grow their business. And there's one or two women in there who don't have businesses, but they're leaders in the community, like they're leading teams, and they want to learn how to lead with more of the feminine way while having your masculine presence and backbone. Okay, so I hope that helps. And yeah, super happy to chat with anybody about FLM, Feminine Leadership Mastery, or Alchemy. All right, Larissa, where do you get such wonderful glowing skin? Any specific, special holistic skincare? Yeah, I can totally tell you that. First of all, Mexico was really great on me. I just came back from 2 weeks in Mexico where I led Untamed Feminine, where I was literally like having pleasure practices in the ocean every day, really nourished by the sun. So that is always the best skincare ever, I would say. So that's one thing. The second thing is argan oil is what I use, like super great, beautiful Moroccan argan oil has been really great. I have very dry skin, so that's really helped me with that. Yeah, those would be and hydration really has been the hugest thing. I'll post another one on that because yeah, skincare is important. All right. Anything else? No, I think that is it for now. All right, so thank you again so much for joining. I hope that this is very, very helpful. Again, DM me FLM, DM me Alchemy if you're interested in any of that. I also do private coaching, so if you're like really to elevate and get my one-on-one full attention on you, then hit me up with that as well. Otherwise, happy to see you back tomorrow. Tomorrow we're also going to do a super fun draw that if you are showing up live, if you're commenting on these on this mini series that I'm doing, you also have a chance to win a program with me valued at $500. So make sure that you show up for that as well. All right, beloveds, thank you so much for today. I'm going to go back down to the Tantra Festival. There's a good dance workshop. I'm going to go dance my heart out. All right, thank you all. Bye for now.